Welcome back to the Counselor HQ podcast. I'm your host, Noelle Rizzio, licensed counselor, school counselor, and founder of Counselor HQ. Today, we're talking about something that almost every counselor experiences, if not all of us, but we don't really talk about it nearly enough, and that is the emotional weight of not knowing what happens to students or clients after they leave us. So this came up this week. I had a client who I really, connected with. We made great progress. She was doing fabulously. And after 3 sessions, she was just like, I feel like we have done so much good that I don't need you anymore, which is a great feeling. But it made me think, I really want to know what happens with her, how she progresses. And so it made me think about all the times that I have had students or clients that leave and I never know what happens to them. And I remember in my internship that was the biggest thing that hit me. I was working with these students, they were high schoolers, and my internship was done. I wasn't coming back. And I had to sit with the fact that I would never know what happened to them. And so that kind of got me thinking, is this only me? I'm sure this happens to other people too. It happened so much to me with different students. I've had clients that stop coming and I just wonder why. So I kind of wanted to talk about this today. I did have one client especially that this, when I thought about doing this episode, it really came back to me. And it was a client that I'd worked with for a really long time. And she had been taken advantage of by an online scam, lost a bunch of money. And we were this really devastated her. It devastated her confidence in herself. She doubted decisions that she made. She just felt really terrible about this whole situation. And we were making such great progress. And then all of a sudden, she just vanished. She just stopped showing up, stopped, returning my emails, wasn't scheduling appointments. And so those are the kind of clients that I'm like, what happened? What happened to them? Not knowing what happens to a student or client can be really emotionally triggering sometimes. Maybe they moved schools, maybe they graduated, maybe they stopped coming to counseling, maybe they terminated unexpectedly, or they terminated expectedly. Maybe you simply never heard from them again. Even years later, you still occasionally wonder, are they okay? What happened to them? I think one of the hardest parts about counseling is that we often become emotionally invested in people's healing journeys. That's normal, right? But we also are accepting that we may never know how their story continues. So today we're talking about why this affects counselors so deeply, the emotional complexity of endings in counseling, and how to cope with the uncertainty that naturally comes with this profession. So as I've said a million times, counseling is relational work. Whether you're a school counselor or a clinical therapist, whatever you do, you spend time building trust, emotional safety, connection, consistency. You hear people's fears, people's struggles, people's hopes, and people's pain. And because of that, it's natural to care about what happens to them. But counseling relationships are unique. Unlike many other relationships in life, we as counselors often experience endings without closure. There's no guaranteed final chapter, no life update, no certainty, no reboot, right? Sometimes people disappear because they're doing really well. Life got busy, finances changed, they transferred schools, or counseling simply became too emotionally difficult. But the counselor is often left with unanswered questions, and that ambiguity can sit really heavily on our hearts. School counselors especially, I know this firsthand, experience this repeatedly. You may spend years supporting a student, helping them through family struggles, anxiety, grief, behavioral challenges, friendship issues, identity development. You watch them grow, you worry about them, you advocate for them, and then one day they leave. They graduate, they move, they change schools, or you simply stop seeing them. And suddenly, someone who is part of your daily emotional world is gone. There are students that many counselors never forget. I know I have one from my very first year that I will never forget. They're the ones that you still think about years later, the ones you wonder about when certain songs play or certain memories come up. And honestly, I think that lingering care says something beautiful about this profession. It means that the relationship mattered. Therapists experience a similar kind of emotional ambiguity. Sometimes clients terminate in healthy ways, sometimes they don't. And there are moments when counselors are left wondering, did they continue healing? Did they find other supports? Did things improve? Are they safe? I remember that, initially when that one client stopped coming, I was afraid that she had harmed herself, to be quite honest, and I had no way of knowing if that was true or not. Therapists are trained to respect client autonomy, and ethically, we know we can't control the outcomes, but emotionally, that's harder because counselors are human beings before they're professionals, and humans naturally wonder about people they care about. There's often an internal tension that counselors experience. Part of us knows I cannot carry responsibility for every outcome, but another part quietly says, I hope they're okay. And honestly, both things can be true at the same time. You can maintain healthy professional boundaries while still genuinely caring about people. Sometimes counselors judge themselves for thinking about former students or clients years later, but caring is not the problem. The problem only happens when caring turns into chronic guilt, emotional over-responsibility, or carrying outcomes that were never fully yours to control. One thing that can help counselors cope with this uncertainty is remembering something important. You may never know the impact that you had. Counselors often assume that if they don't see a dramatic ending, that the work didn't matter. But healing doesn't always happen in obvious ways. Sometimes what you gave someone was one safe adult, one validating conversation, one moment of emotional regulation, one belief in them that they had never experienced before. And that can ripple outwards for years, even if you don't see it. There are countless adults who still remember a school counselor who listened, a therapist who made them feel understood, a caring professional who helped them through a difficult season, even if that counselor never hears the outcome. Sometimes counseling is just planting seeds that you may never personally watch grow, and that can be both heartbreaking and beautiful at the same time. I think about like planting a garden and then moving, right? Or I had a house that I planted flowers and then I sold the house and I moved. I planted those and I wonder how they're doing. But I assume that they grew and they're beautiful and that someone else is experiencing that beauty that I helped to, create, I guess. And so I like to think about that with my clients. Instead of thinking that bad things happened, just think about that you planted something that someone else gets to watch become beautiful. So let's talk about practical ways counselors can cope with these lingering emotions. Normalizing the experience. If you wonder about former students or clients, you're not too attached. You're human. This is an incredibly common experience in helping professions. There is nothing wrong with you, okay? It's actually there's something right with you because it shows that you cared. Focus on presence, not outcome. Your goal in being a therapist, a counselor, it was never to guarantee a perfect outcome. Your role is to show up, to support, to guide, and to provide care during the time that you have with that person. And that matters. Allow yourself to feel grief, right? It's an ending. It's a loss of something. Sometimes there's genuine grief in counseling endings, not inappropriate grief, human grief. Acknowledging that can actually reduce the emotional suppression and burnout. Just allow yourself to be like, this sucks. This sucks that I never heard from this person again. Call it out. Trust that small moments matter. Counselors often underestimate their impact because they rarely see the full story afterward. But small moments of safety and connection can stay with people for years, right? Going back to those plants that I planted at that other house, those flowers, they're still there, unless somebody dug them up, but I assume they're still there. Take care of yourself too. Counselors cannot emotionally carry every unresolved story forever. This is why boundaries, peer support, consultation, and self-care matter so much in our profession. You deserve support too. If you take one thing from today's episode, let it be this. It's okay to wonder about the people you helped. That wondering is not weakness. It's evidence that you care. But you are not responsible for carrying every story forever. Sometimes the most meaningful work counselors do happens quietly in moments they never fully witness the outcome of. And even if you never hear the ending, your presence may still have changed someone's life. Thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for the care you give. And thank you for showing up for people in some of the hardest moments of their lives. I will see you in the next episode.